Hi, I'm Keith Reynolds. Welcome to SMarketPlace. We are a podcast about sales, marketing, and rock and roll. Uh, this series explores the connections between marketing and sales through a rock and roll lens. And just like artists in a band, they come together to create, market, and sell music that resonates with listeners. Today, we all have to do that as marketers and salespeople and produce content, get out there and meet our audience on the social media and sell stuff. And so we are really fortunate to have Zev uh, Gotkin. I'm sorry, Zev Gotkin,
No, that's right.
and Tom Dempsey. Welcome, Tom, and welcome, Zev.
Thank you for
Hey,
having me.
terrific to be here, Keith.
So, Zev, tell us a little bit about yourself and ZEV Media.
Sure. So, I'm the founder and CEO of ZEV Media. We're a boutique, full service digital marketing agency. Sometimes I will lead by saying we're an advertising agency because we're focused primarily on digital advertising to help you explode your brand, get new leads, get new sales, and like Keith said, sell stuff. And we do that primarily. We're platform agnostic, but we are heavily into the dominant platforms of today, Google and Meta, which is of course Facebook and Instagram. But we advertise on other platforms as well. Beyond that, we also do everything from websites and landing pages to SEO, organic social, email, and more. Our niche, uh, our niche industry vertical right now is hospitality. However, we have worked with clients with probably every vertical under the sun.
So, tell us a little bit about how you got here and what's your why.
Great questions. So since I was a child, even before my mother says before I could even write, I was already writing or trying to write like stories. I was always like a storyteller, a reader. It wasn't until after college that I even discovered what copywriting was, um, and that it wasn't some kind of legal thing. And I started doing kind of ad copy, and I was always doing freelance on the side, but I worked for a while at an agency in Brooklyn, and in-house at an e-commerce company, and even as part of a restaurant manager job, I was also doing their like Facebook and the marketing. And basically, when it was around 2016, I thought I should freelance full time, see if I can make a go of it. My goal was just, hey, can I make as much money as I did working at like a kind of entry level, mid level job, right? And go from there. And I started out as a content writer, consultant, um, but also really I consumed over a period of like 5 years or so. I was consuming every kind of blog, podcast, ebook, anything related to social media, email, digital marketing in general became my passion. And in 20 late 2018, that's when I officially got the LLC, ZEV Media, launched as a digital marketing agency. And we still do a lot of content and all of that, but we've also really moved into a lot of PPC and advertising. So I'd say we're like a growth marketing agency, handling everything from the creative to the more technical tracking and optimization.
So, in pulling these solutions together, what's your secret sauce for breaking through the noise?
Well, I'm not going to share that with you. No, just kidding. Um, I Yeah, so I think there's a number of things. There's one is really you've got to be interesting. When I say that, I mean like you've got to focus on what your audience cares about, the pain point, what they aspire to, less about yourself and your brand and your features. And the second thing, that's kind of tried and true, but today's world, it's not enough to just have like good content and to just be on the relevant platforms. You've got to have a strategy, as you said, for breaking through the noise. Besides being relevant and having interesting, compelling content and offers, you've got to be able to kind of hack these different platforms and be able to contextualize your content and messaging.
Our producer's on vacation, so I'm producing and interviewing today. Hey, Tom, I know you had a question.
Yeah, you do it all. The one thing that I've always wondered too about branding and digital media, et cetera, is how do you measure its success?
That is one of the most important questions, especially when you start with, and it's a case by case answer, is the truth. But I think that when you start with a new client, a lot of people are in a rush to they don't have they kind of a vague sense. Clients especially have a vague sense of what success looks like. I want to make more money. I want an ROI. Right? But when you're doing an ad campaign or any kind of digital marketing, whether it's SEO, anything organic, there are many different moving pieces and components. And you have to kind of have agreed upon, mutually understood metrics for kind of how you're going to evaluate the success, what it looks like, and then how you're going to track and measure it. So for example, and it has to make sense for the amount of time. So for example, if you're going after an audience of people that kind of have familiarity with your brand, maybe you're opted into your email list, you're going to have a lot of different metrics in month one versus a company that's going out for a completely cold audience. Their month one metrics are going to be completely different. And these metrics are kind of, the way to think about them are like benchmarks. And within these benchmarks, there's like little, what we'd call KPIs, or key performance indicators, that tell you if you're getting closer. So maybe I haven't hit my first goal, but before I give up prematurely, I should look at certain signs, right? If I'm moving towards achieving that goal. And those are what we call the KPIs. And then it's really having the right tracking, the right software measurements, and management to make sure that you are achieving that goal, or you're hitting those KPIs. And then this is where I think a lot of marketing agencies fall down, and we try to be stronger, is communicating that to your client, because your client doesn't necessarily understand a bunch of dashboards and graphs and charts. Your client, you're telling them they're achieving success, that it's working, and that you're where you want to be for the time you've been running the campaign. But they might tell you, I'm not feeling it. So you have to be very transparent and help them understand like what's actually happening.
Yeah, they may be too close to it, inside of it, to really feel it too sometimes. So those metrics and KPIs that you mentioned are absolutely critical too. And for you to be able to relate that to them and say, yes, this particular campaign is making a difference, and here's how it's making a difference.
Yeah, and it's really important because people have to be. A lot of times, people compare themselves to something maybe like perfection, or some big brand, or an influencer, or something, and you've got to not just compare yourself to industry standards, but to your own standards, like where you were a month ago versus now, things like that, and understand how it plays out, like have perspective. And also, if you're seeing that you're in the right direction, that's important, because a lot of times these things are cumulative, they take time, and you don't want to feel like you're just walking in the dark for a long time. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're probably going to pull back before you have a chance to actually really see the results.
Yeah, and you know what? The other thought that comes to mind too is the relationship between marketing and sales, which is all about what Keith and I talk about. And you think the easy way to come up with the metric is to say, okay, has my revenue increased? But there's one half of the equation, which is sales, that has to take it from marketing and all the digital media and everything that you do to create that brand. Sales then has to take the handshake from marketing and take it from there, and ultimately make a difference when it comes to however you're measured, revenue or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I love the title of your show, Sales, Marketing, Rock and Roll. I kind of feel like probably if I had to choose, marketing's the rock, sales is the roll.
Ah,
You know,
I love that.
thank
I
you.
like where
Yeah,
you use
so
that.
feel free, not trademarked, because I think that the marketing, I'd say it's the rock because it's like making the noise. It's getting, people are hearing it, people are attracted to it. Pure marketing. Really, I know that this is going to shock some people. It's not sales. I mean, it helps put you in the best position to make sales. It helps you get sales. But especially if you're talking about like branding and things like that, the sales part of it is different. However, a lot of what we do as being a growth marketing agency, we're not really, we're not just kind of brand strategists. We're not the ones who are just coming up with your logo and design. We're usually the ones that you go to and you kind of have a sense of your audience. You have a goal. And we are kind of a fusion with digital ads today, like Facebook ads as an example. It's kind of a mix of both. The content and the output is branding and marketing. It's attracting. But then because you have a way of also prompting people right there to take the next step, get them into a funnel and track every stage of it, it's also connected more clearly to the end sale.
Yeah, that's
How
exactly
does
right.
how does that play out in hospitality, and what role does storytelling play?
Hmm.
That is a fantastic question. So hospitality in particular, there's a lot of different campaigns. There's both lead generation and e-commerce campaigns. So, but backing up even a little bit further, hospitality is all about story. It's about experiences. It's about memories. A lot of I read recently that most people's memories, that the only things they remember from when they were younger is usually when they were traveling or they were somewhere different. Creating those moments. So there's a lot of story-rich opportunities in hospitality. As far as the actual sales component of it, there's a couple different levels. Let's say if you're getting some kind of big event, big catered event, maybe a milestone, a bridal shower, bar mitzvah, a corporate training, or a corporate, very big thing now is these corporate team builders, where the whole office gets together to do something, builds team cohesion. That's usually going to be more of a lead generation play, where the goal is sort of like to get someone to give you their email, their phone number, book a call, something to learn more, where a salesperson's really going to answer the questions and help people understand it, maybe do a tour first, something like that. The e-commerce end of it might be booking reservations for a hotel or a restaurant, or hey, there's this cool cooking class for couples, like, I'm gonna buy a ticket, or there's a rooftop movie night with popcorn, like, I'll buy my ticket, and maybe for 5 friends, and they'll pay me back later, hopefully, something like that.
Yeah.
Or concert, as you guys
Yeah.
Concept, there you go. So you span from B2B to B2C, and some of that, I always find it fascinating that the road to the C sometimes goes through the B. So you have a B to B to C. Let's dive into a little bit about the dynamic of how you get those funnels working, and then we'll move on to your rock and roll story yourself.
Sure. Hold up. I'm sorry to do this. My fish is ready. I have to turn off the oven. If I
Sure.
can I'll be right back.
All right.
All right, we'll talk.
All right.
One of my favorite quotes, and this came up in a different discussion too. It's from Steve Jobs, that if you don't compete on price, you're left with cool. And you think you don't. I was just saying, Zev, that one of my favorite quotes was from Steve Jobs, and if you don't compete on price, you're left with cool. You better be cool if you're not, competing on pennies.
For sure. Yeah. And they also say, I think it's Jay Baer, who's a marketing consultant and hotel like customer service expert. was on my podcast, and he said that like advertising is sometimes the price you pay for being uninteresting. I think that it's changed a little bit, in my opinion. I think that today you can be as interesting as you'd like, but it's very hard to get uh, noticed. We are in a more crowded environment than we've ever been. We have more channels and platforms than ever. You're not just competing today with other companies or other people in your industry. You're competing for the attention graph with people and their friends' baby pictures. You're also competing with like multiple with AI and bots. So you really, I think sometimes you've got to be interesting, and you've got to sometimes pay the right platforms or have the right strategy for getting it in the right places at the right time, and that is the distribution is just as important, if not more important, than the content.
And that's a fascinating point. And very much the way a television network works. You have a show, and in the middle of the show, you not only do you have ads, but you have promotions about another show, right? And so that distribution can really be rich in terms of having an event that has an online component. There may be some content that you want to share with people, and you use ads to get them to the intermediary stage, on that customer journey, and not just have a call and response kind of advertising.
Yeah, and to that point, and that's why I think advertising's actually have made a comeback. Whereas for a while everyone was saying it's all about kind of PR, but I think now in the way they fused, like I was saying, marketing and sales have come together. A lot of not all the ads we do. So how it breaks down, if we're advertising on search, a lot of that, besides banner ads, a lot of it is someone is searching for a specific thing, a keyword by interest, and ideally they have some kind of transactional intent, and you have an ad that appears, that really is relevant to what they're looking for. But on social media, which is increasingly like where more people are spending time, and sometimes the go-to place where people are finding out about products and brands, the play is like, it's not interruptive necessarily. It's not like necessarily you're in the middle of watching something. Yeah, you could do that on like Hulu or on TV, but on Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn, it might be, I'm just scrolling through. This is where I like to spend time, unwind or relax, or this is where I try to find new things to learn about in my industry. And then I see a video, or I see like an article or something that catches my attention. It's not interrupting me. So it's a challenge in a way, because you've got to be really interesting. People scrolling at like 100 miles an hour, but you've also got the if it's well targeted and it's compelling enough, you have people who are kind of like freely choosing, and you may have like more interest.
Fascinating. Well, that really speaks to the importance of knowing your ideal customer profile, right? From marketing to sales, and the journey that they're taking. Because you don't need 1 million downloads or 1 million hits, right? You just need the
right hits.
The right hits, right? And so that's the real beauty of getting to know the data behind the advertising and publishing the content, and being able to fuse that data to see that target that you're trying to get. I know you have a tight schedule here, but we did want to get to your favorite rock and roll. So forgive the hard segue here, but tell us about your favorite bands and concerts.
Sure. I just want to say one thing before I go into that. You're spot on, and that's what I meant earlier when people like comparing themselves to things that don't really make sense, like apples to oranges. You've got to look at your own progress. You've got to look at not a like or a follower is kind of a weak relational link. You want people. It's having 1,000 followers. You want that? I can get you that tomorrow. We could buy them for you, no problem. And it's not always a bad idea. Maybe you want some optics, fine. But it's much better to have 5 people, like your networking groups, and then you're on LinkedIn. You don't need to go viral. You don't need to be an influencer. You need the 20 people you met in the networking group or whatever who could be your customer, or all your, the 5 people in your network who are your best referral partners, to just be seeing you more often and reminded of you and why they should be referring you. That's a lot more valuable than having 5,000 people, randos from around the world, who probably are never going to be your customer.
Right.
So, yeah.
Does that mean you can advertise directly to people now?
Yes, I would say it's gotten much more custom. And in other words, if you are able to collect enough data from web visits, from emails and things like that, followers, doing some social listening, you can now reach people in a way that, like, so for example, on social media, I can control who sees my content. I can make sure I really am appearing for people who are really my target market, down to the smallest interest, obscure interest or location or income, kind of like on search too, where it's more keyword based. And then if you have people in your funnel or anything like that, then it really becomes a game of, I would say, segmentation, highly segmented, contextualized content. Make sure that every offer you're putting in front of people makes sense. So, like, you should send very different content, like on email, to someone who's sort of a prospect, right? Who maybe just saw your ad on Instagram, versus people who have demonstrated some sort of intent and a consideration or past purchase. And you can really make it very custom and unique and tailored to each person, much easier now, especially with AI tools and things like that.
And platforms like HubSpot that really allow you to manage that audience. I've had this idea of connecting your podcast to your CRM, right? It's
very smart. Yep.
all
rock and roll. Sorry.
Yeah, rock and roll.
So rock and roll. My first concert, I think you guys will like this, was the Eagles.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah, this is 2005. It was Farewell Part 1. So,
when hell freezes over.
Yeah. Don Henley was alive. He was there.
Yeah.
And Joe Walsh, and it was incredible. I had the privilege of seeing them again I think it was last year at Madison Square Garden. The first time was I think Jones Beach and back in the day. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I've seen some great bands. I was into Bob Marley a lot as a kid, and the Wailers, and I was into hip hop as well. I think more common in my generation. But I think, as far as bands I'd love to see, I haven't seen yet, I'd love to see U2. I'd love to see Coldplay. Never seen either of them live. But yeah.
You're going to try to make the Eagles at the Sphere in Vegas?
I don't know about that, but they come back to New York. They were so good. Someone now replaced Don Henley, I guess. There's some other guy, and there was someone. Glenn Fry's son can sing almost exactly like his father. Like, it was incredible. And I don't remember which one of them said this. I think it was Joe Walsh said that it's more fun. Well, he said it was more fun being in your 20s in the 70s than your 70s in the 20s. But they've still got it. Like, they still really know how to rock. So, yeah.
Good.
That's a great band. That takes me back to dating my what became my wife. She loved that music, and we played it in the car all the time, and then saw them at Alpine Valley up in Wisconsin.
Wow. Yeah, my dad got me into them when I was like in high school. But yep. One other person I love too, classic rocker that I mean, I don't know if you call him rock, pop, whatever. I think he's one of the best singer-storytellers of our time is Billy Joel. And I saw him at the Garden a couple years ago. And I mean, I grew up on Long Island. Like, I get a lot of references he makes, So yeah. But this was really awesome. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, we're so glad you came on and shared your knowledge and expertise and your experience with rock and roll. It's fun having people like you on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Keith and I get to learn from our guests, and we learn from you. So we appreciate it.
Awesome. Same here. Thank you so much.
We'll catch up soon. Thank you, Zev.
All right.